Hey there, it's Pete Checkley for Sample Library Review, and today I am checking out Raw Strings by Sudden Audio. New developer Sudden Audio have entered the virtual instrument world with their first offering, Raw Strings. Essentially, this is a contemporary modern string texture library, yet this goes beyond the confinements of our slinky friends. The samples range from traditional strings to cassette tape and other found sounds. By using a 4-layer engine, all of these wonderful sound sources can be combined to create unique textures which are perfect for cinematic underscore, crime and tension, or whatever your imagination decides. String texture libraries are nothing new, but Raw Strings successfully brings some new ideas to the table while sounding superb along the way. Raw Strings downloads at 10.4 gigabytes and contains 116 sound sources. It has 3 unique tape versions and there are 68 handcrafted presets. It uses a 4-layer Contact engine and it requires the free version of Contact 6.2.2 or later. It is also NKS compatible.
Hey guys, Don Bodan here, jumping in real quick. Sudden Audio's Raw Strings normally sells for $159, but it's on a special intro price for $69 US. That intro price was just extended today until January 22nd, 2021. All right, I'm going to hand things back over to Pete so we can dive into the library.
Before we jump in and hear what Raw String sounds like, there's a couple of facts to be aware of. Now, the first thing is it uses one NKI file and everything is loaded up using different snapshots, okay? So we'll look through those a little bit later. Then in the middle is where everything happens. So it's a really simple design. You have the 4 layers, so I'm just going to activate those, and you have the 2 macros. Now the first macro is mapped to CC1, which is your mod wheel, and then the second macro is mapped to CC11, which is the expression. But all I did just to start off was I made sure all the layers were active and I just hit randomize and just started playing. And then once I did that, I did it again and just started playing. Let's do a D minor again. And instantly the inspiration hits you and what this library is capable of. So what I'm going to do is turn off the microphone and play through some of the snapshots. And yes, you did just hear a piano, which is contained within this library. And it's just one of the many different sample sources that Raw Strings contains. So that's raw strings out of the box. Now, the first thing I'll say, for a contemporary string library, this sounds fantastic. And the reason being, not only do you have all the lush sounding atmospheric strings, you also have the more experimental side to the library. And I love the fact they're using the Arpeggiator to create these really interesting rhythms. So I just think there's a lot of dimensions to this library. And the main surprising thing was I thought it would just be strings because it's called raw strings, but you have not only string instruments, you've got all the found instruments, you have a keyboard, which is called the rehearsal keyboard, and it's just all a really nice touch. I love the tape and the vinyl as well. So really, in terms of sound design, they thought of everything for raw strings. So for me, there's loads of utility. I could find a lot of places where I'd use this. You can literally just play one patch, mess around with the two sort of CC macros, and just have a really good time just creating new and different sounds. Okay, so looking at the instrument in more detail, I've loaded up one of the sound beds called Moonlight. That's going on forever and ever, and it is quite affected. So if we look at the GUI, first of all, we have the 4 layers. Now we have rehearsal keyboard, raw slow 5 IPS, and stagger swell 5 IPS. So if I click on the rehearsal keyboard, you can then see exactly where all these samples are from. Okay, so there's the first page, and that's the standard sounds. So these are your more traditional string sounds. And then we have the tape sounds. So it did say on the website there's 3 different tape sources, and these are what they are. And then we have special tape, which have obviously completely different sounds. Then reverse sounds. I'm a huge fan of reverse sounds, especially in more sort of ambient and underscore work. And reverse tape sounds, and then some extras. This is where our rehearsal keyboard is. Vinyl and tape noises, jangles, singing bowl, just so much going on. So if I was quickly change that to the reverse keyboard, and a really cool shortcut, you can just change these any way you want to on each different patch, on each different layer. I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but this is the fun of the library. So now I've got a completely different patch. And to me, that sounds incredibly useful straight away, and that's absolutely stunning. So it's really that simple just to start creating your own new patches. Moving on through the GUI, each layer has 4 controls, either above or below it. So looking at the first layer, we have our volume, and then we have our stereo panning left and right, our filter cutoff, and then tuning. Now, if I disable everything apart from the rehearsal keyboard, and the tuning's really cool, so you can obviously change the pitch. Now, if you want to go back to where it was and you want to be precise, it's a little bit tricky to do, and you probably can't ever be certain. So a really handy C, which will take it back to the center. So that's our D minor that I'm very fond of today. And then okay, and obviously you can learn Midi CC and assign that to anything you want, and you've got this really cool sort of pitch shift effect, and yeah, it's just really inventive. So that's the 4 controls, and then you can very quickly bypass master effects, which is to be found down here, so I'll talk about that in a second, or just have different output sends, which is very cool. And we close that, and then the effects. Now each channel has their own, each layer has their own effects which can be used, and again you can find each layer on the left. And it's a simple case of just clicking and adding what you'd like on that layer. So there's some delay tape. Gonna add some room, actually some hall reverb. And let's just phase it as well. Let's go a bit extreme. Get more granular. So you've got some absolutely fantastic options, and you can put these effects on individual layers. So it's not just a global effect. If you do want global effects, if you just click on the master effects, and there's our global, so M for master, and that will affect every different layer. Now the other sections, got the ADSR, really useful, especially for these evolving and sort of pad-like textures. And you have the Arpeggiator and sequencer, and then of course all the Midi mod matrix. I've now turned on the Arpeggiator and I'm using the piano sound. Now the reason is it is just a single short note, so you'll hear the effects of the Arpeggiator and sequencer a lot easier. So I've just set it to a really simple rhythm. And you can do the usual change to the velocities, and you can change the timing or the length of each note, sorry. Okay. Then you can change the rhythm denomination. Okay, so plenty of options. And you can change how many steps, so you can go a bit crazier. And you can affect these on different layers as well. Okay, so it doesn't just have to stay on layer 1. So it's a really good, easy way of copying exactly the same rhythm to a different layer. And then you have the swing, octave, drag, and humanize settings. So we're not going to hit anything on there. Let's put a bit of swing. Okay, so really straightforward. You have the re-trigger and sort of the actions that you can set, and the sketching mode arpeggiates the left hand, so one octave input, while leaving the right hand free to play melodies. So that's a really interesting way of doing it. I'll just try that. I've not got that set up right, but that's essentially what the sketching does. I didn't turn it on, that was the reason. Okay, so it does work. That was possibly not a fantastic example, but yeah, that's how it's done. And then you can have the arpeggiator algorithms, so up and down, and depending on the direction you want it to go. And then you can create your own custom algorithm as well. So absolutely loads of options on the arpeggiator. And then on the sequencer, you can obviously create your own sort of custom sequences. So let's say I've got a crescendo. Okay, so crescendo pattern, and you can just draw in how you want the volume to go. Okay, and there are presets. So also a very similar way for the arpeggiator, there are sequence presets. So if I do sketching preset. Okay, so sequencer is really useful, and you can see as I play the left hand down here, the notes turn blue, and these are the ones that will play the sequence, and then the melody notes are the other blue notes. Then we have obviously different sequence settings, volume, the rhythmic denomination, layer controls, LFO mode, and the amount of steps and the depth, etc. Okay, so it's really is very detailed, and when you start playing some of these movement patches, so if I go to hallucinate, you can see they use the sequencer and arpeggiator in a very detailed fashion. So a really, really great tool to have. And I love the idea of making your own pulses and sort of giving your pieces movements. The final part of the GUI is the Midi mod matrix. And this is where you can really customize the sound and just create something completely unique and wonderful. Now, if you go on the Sudden Audio website, you'll find some links to the manual, which actually will be in the download folder as well. And it does talk in detail about the Midi mod matrix. It sounds like a lot's going on. The note split is, this creates note splits for each layer. Higher layers take precedence over low layers in the keyboard display. And then velocity, create velocity ranges for each layer. Layer will sound if MIDI note is within range. Okay, so you're changing when will it trigger. Random split, it determines the percentage chance that each layer will sound. Set to single layer to create a round robin between the sample layers. And then macro 1, macro 2, so these are in the middle of the GUI, and you can play around with the different pitch bend options. Okay, so there's a lot going on there, and the more you get used to the instrument, the more you're going to start using it. And yeah, so you can sort of deeply customize each layer. Now, the velocity curve and the velocity depth obviously will sort of change whether the sound is more uniform. If you reduce it, you have more uniform sound, or it can accommodate the sensitivity of different MIDI controllers. The pan stretch pans lower notes from to left, higher or to the right, similar to the keyboard instrument, controls how hard or soft the panning is. And then random panning amount applied for each new note controls how hard or soft the panning is. So I love creating these sort of nice sweepy textures where it just pans left and right, and this is exactly where you do it. And then you can globally change the ADSR and the sample offset and the timbre. Okay, so the sample start time is quite late on that one, and obviously you can just slide this around. You can completely randomize it if you want to within those two parts. It's that simple. So just played around with the layer settings slightly, so it has altered the sound. Now, all this combined just creates a really versatile instrument, and the thing I still absolutely love doing is just hitting that randomize button. And you can just spend ages picking out some really cool sounds. My final thoughts about raw strings is, firstly, it does sound incredibly high quality, and I can see myself using this in a lot of different types of cue. Now, this instrument just invites you to play and experiment and combine all these 4 layers, different effects, different sequences, and just put it all together. And ultimately, it's really, really fun to do. So if you like making string beds and complex moving atmospheres, then this instrument really is for you. Now, I can hear a lot of this kind of music, obviously, on TV scores. There's a lot of underscore. It can really create tension, but also it can create these absolutely beautiful soundscapes. So I absolutely love all the customization options. I love the presets or the snapshots it comes with. And I think Sudden Audio have done an absolutely great job of just combining these really interesting sound sources and then creating this really fun instrument to use. So it is a huge recommendation from me. It does take time to get used to. The MIDI mod matrix, as I explained it, I sort of realised I've not spent enough time with it, but I will be, and I'll get to know the instrument a lot better. But in terms of straight out the box, put into productions, there's a lot here to get you started straight away. And the fact you can create your own sounds, add your own effects, and sort of change the parameters of everything, it's just a really, really great, mind-blowing, I don't use that word very often, versatile instrument. But when I say mind-blowing, it is still a very, very niche area of music. So if you make this kind of music, I think you're going to have a great time with it. If you don't, it's a really good place to start. Thanks so much for checking out this first look of Raw Strings by Sudden Audio. If you liked the video, feel free to leave a like and put a comment underneath and tell us what you like about the instrument. How would this work in your workflow? Obviously, please subscribe to our channel and then pop over to samplelibraryreview.com to check out everything to do with the latest and greatest in sample libraries. Take care.